Very good evening, children. Very good evening to all. Can you all hear me? Very good evening, children. Very good evening to all. Can you all hear me? Okay. Guruveer Singh, Ashad, thank you for immediate response. Vaishnavi. Okay. So I'm going to handle your biology classes. Today is being the first class. I just want to know about you all. Okay. Just I want to know about you are from which school and which state. Which school and which state. Okay. Just type it, your name. Your name, it will be displayed there, no issues. Which school you are studying, which state, whether Karnataka or Bangalore, or something you should mention the place, Chennai or Kolkata, like that. Okay, Kavish from Sunflower School, Telangana. Great. All of you children, there's a chat box there. The chat box, you can post it. We are going to start the class from in another few minutes. National Public School, Karnataka, Pranav Kannan. Mukund, DAV Gopalapuram, Air Force Golden Jubilee Institute, New Delhi, Rutanya. Okay. Punya Chowdhury, Montfort School, Trichy, PSPBLA, Karnataka, KVIIT, very good, Mahadev, National Public School, Chennai, Hindu Senior Secondary, Chennai, Ridges School, Bright Ridges School, UAE, Karnataka, VGR, KV Annanagar, Vaishnavi from Kerala, Sanmita from Sendai, the Global School, Hyderabad. Okay, children. Great. Okay. So happy to see you all. I hope in your school they've started the lessons. They've started the lessons, right? In biology, in 9th standard, nearly half of the lesson in the science, half of the lessons you'll have biology. The biology, it is a very easy subject if you understand the concepts easily. Otherwise, you will find it difficult. First, for most of you, not most of you, almost everybody, this it will be the first class in biology, or you'll be attending first class here. What I will do is I'll teach a concept to you, and during the class, all of you follow this. During the class, when I'm teaching, please don't post any doubts, or if it is 100% necessary that the doubt has to be cleared immediately, you can post it. And as you all know it, in Aha Guru we have mentors. Biology mentors will be there in all the classes. We have mentors. I'll be teaching the class, and mentors will be there to monitor what are the doubts you have, all those things. Okay, so here in my class, I'll complete one concept, and after the concept, I'll give a time for you to ask your doubts. I'll tell you, children, you can post your doubts. Like that, I'll just announce in the class. In that time, if you have doubt, you can post it. Okay, children? And meanwhile, another one important instruction, if somebody is answering or somebody is asking a question, that question is posted to us. Either I will respond to that or the mentors will respond to that. And in between, I don't want any other children to respond to that. Okay? Is it clear? Two instructions. 100%, if it is necessary, the doubt has to be cleared immediately. You can ask the doubt. Otherwise, once a small concept is over, I will ask you to clarify your doubts. And that time you can post your doubts. You can note down. You can take down the notes in the class. And sometimes I will ask mentors to get your notes. What are the notes that you have taken? So I'm very happy that not only from India, even from abroad, children are attending this class. I'm happy about this. In today's class, as you all know it, today's class, the topic is about the cell, the fundamental unit of life. Cell, the fundamental unit of life. And another important thing I just want to tell you, I want everyone to respond in the class. I ask sometimes, children, have you understood the concept? Is it clear? Like that, if I ask something, I want everyone to respond to that. So that is how you should engage yourself in the class. You should engage yourself in the class. I hope all of it is clear to you. Let's enjoy the class. I want to learn something from you. And similarly, I'll also expect something that has to be learned from my side. Okay, let's all together start the class. The topic for today's class is going to be cell, the basic unit of life. Now, definition for the cell. The definition for the cell. If I ask you what is a cell, you have learnt about cell right from the lower class. Right from the lower class, you have learnt about the cell. And you will give different explanation for that or different answers for that. The answers could be like this. The answers could be like this. Answers, cell is the basic unit of life. Yes, correct. All living organisms is made up of cell. Yes, 100% correct. But usually the definitions for cell is, the cell is the basic structural and functional unit of life, right? The definition is cell is the basic structural and functional unit of life. Cell is the basic structural and functional unit of life. That means all living organisms, all the living organisms it is made up of cell. The cell gives a basic structure to the living organism, whether it is a unicellular organism, that is organism that is made up of a single cell, that is unicellular organisms, or organisms that are multicellular, which is made up of many cells. In both the organisms, whether it has a single cell or many cell, in both the organisms, the basic unit, it is the life. The basic unit of life, it is the cell. Why the cell is known as the structural unit? Because the cell is the one that gives a definite structure to the organism. For example, here you can see that I'm just drawing an organism here. This organism is called as amoeba. So which one gives the shape? Which one gives the shape to the organism? The cell. What is the shape here? Irregular shape. Irregular shape. So the cell, the shape of the organism is because of the cell. And similarly, it is also known as a functional unit. Why it is called as a functional unit? All activities of the cell, all activities in the cell, all the functions, all activities are carried out by the cells. All activities are carried out by the cell. All activities are carried out by the cell. Whatever activities is there, whether it is a respiration or whether it is digestion or sending out the waste, respiration, taking in air, whatever activities are there, all the activities are carried out by the cell. Whether it is single cell means all the activities are taken care by the single cell. Whereas the many cells, multicellular cells means the functions here are shared. The functions are shared among the cells. Whereas here, the single cell carry out all the functions. A little bit complicated process in unicellular organism, but still it exists. In multicellular organisms, the functions are shared among the cells. So that's why the cell is known as the basic structural and functional unit of life. It gives a definite shape and structure to the organism, and all activities are carried out by the cells. That's why the cell is known as the structural and functional unit of life. Next is we are going to talk about the discoveries of cell. The discoveries of cell. What are the various discoveries? How the cell was discovered? Okay, children, till now, if you have any doubt, you can post your doubts. Till now. Jnananandani, Adya, Arniraj, Abhinav, Adityan, Aishik, Anirudh Mogan, Arjun Srinivas, Dia, Inia, Ashad, Pranav, Darshini, Nidhi, Shreya. Any doubt? Children, you can post your doubts if you have doubt. Otherwise, you can also type it and say no doubts. Okay. Danshika, thank you. Aishwarya, Aditi Rohat, Dikshita, Priyanka, Katima Rao, Tisya, Purva, Raghav, Lokesh, Ramanujam, Vaishnavi, Steven Raj, Ramanujam. Any doubt? Okay, very good. So there is no doubt. So I will continue with that. So discovery of the cell. I'm going to talk that in a chronological order. In the 1595, Jason he discovered the first compound microscope, and after that only okay, in the year 1655, Robert Hooke is the person who discovered or described the cells in the cork of the cork means the outer layer, the bark of the tree. The bark of the tree. From that, he identified a honeycomb like structure like this. A honeycomb like structure like this, and he called them as cells. The honeycomb like structure like this, and he named them as cells. And in the year 1674, in the year 1674, in the year see some years here mentioned depends on different textbooks. Okay, don't worry about in which year it was discovered or invented. Don't worry about that. Certain things are very important. I'll tell you what are the things are very important. In the year 1655, 1655, Leeuwen Hook, he discovered protozoa. What is protozoa? Proto means primitive. Proto means primitive. The term zoan means animal. The primitive animals were discovered in the year 1674. In the year 1674. The year 1674. And Robert Brown, he discovered the nucleus. Robert Brown discovered nucleus in the year 1833, but it is given as 1831 to 1833. In between that, he could have identified. It is an assumption that, but it's not 100% confirmed that they have discovered in that particular year. Okay, children, that's why in some books it is given like this, it is given like that. So don't worry about that. So here, Robert Brown, it discovered the nucleus in the orchid plant. What is nucleus? In the cell, and very important structure which is usually present at the center, that is called as nucleus. He discovered that. And the year 1835, Felix, he identified that the cell, the living cell, has some juice-like substances. Juice-like substances. The juice-like substances, we name them as sarcode. That means here in the cytoplasm of the cell, the cytoplasm cell usually it will be jelly-like structure. A jelly-like structure it will be there. So that's what he called them as sarcode. He called those things as sarcode. Next is the cell theory. The cell theory. The cell theory, it was proposed. It was proposed in the year 1838 to 39. That is the actual year. Somewhere in between that, they have identified that. 1838 to 1839. This was discovered by Matthias Schelidian, who is a botanist. He studied about the plant. He is a botanist. He studied about the plant. And Theodor Schwann, he is a zoologist. Both of them, they proposed a theory that is called a cell theory. But this cell theory, it was again rewritten. The cell theory was rewritten later by Rudolf Virchow. I'll talk about that later. So the cell theory, Matthias Schelidian and Theodor Schwann, they proposed the cell theory. I'll talk about cell theory later. And the year 1839, Purkinje, a person, he named the term protoplasm. What is protoplasm? The protoplasm means the living part of the cell. The living part of the cell. The living part of the cell, we call it as protoplasm. So what are the living part of the cell? What and all you are seeing here? The nucleus and the cytoplasm. together it is called as the living part of the cell. So what are the two things? The nucleus and cytoplasm. Both together it is known as protoplasm. It is known as protoplasm. So Purkinje, it discovered it discovered it discovered it discovered that it discovered the term protoplasm, the living part of the cell. In the year 1840, Albert von Rolliker, he observed sperm cells and egg cells, and he also called those things as cells. In our body, Satyanarayanan Sitaraman, child, I want you to concentrate in the class. 1 minute, because I have told clearly, just want to know it. Just here, I told you very clearly, don't worry about the years that is mentioned here. In various textbooks, they are mentioning differently. You just understand what was discovered by whom. Certain things alone, I will tell you, confirmed. Those things you learn it. Okay, child? So, and also I told you very clearly, I don't want anyone to post your doubts in between the class. It is for everybody. I don't want anyone to post your doubts in between the class. I will ask you to post your doubts. During that time, you can post it. Whatever clarification that is required from your side, I want you to do that only during that time, because it is disturbance for others. They will keep on concentrating in that what you have mentioned. Okay? It is for everybody, not only for X or Y. Here we are giving a data. We are giving a data and explaining that. Explanation is very, very important. That alone, you just follow it. Here I will give a separate sheet for that. This is supposed to be 1665. Okay. And here in some textbook it is mentioned as 1838. In some textbook 1839. Okay. So that's why I've written like this. Albert von Rolliker is realized that sperm cells and egg cells are also cells. Okay. So here in our body we have cells, right? There are two type of cells are there in the body. One is somatic cells. Somatic cells. The other cells are germ cells. In the germ cells, we have two types are there. One is sperms in male and ovum in the case of female. Whereas the somatic cells means the body cells. The body cells. Here, what Albert von Rolliker described, it was these cells, germ cells. And he also told that the germs are also, it comes under the cells. Previously, they never thought about that. Even the sex cells, we call them germ cells, are sex cells. Germ cells are also called as sex cells. The sperm and ovum also come under the cells. Hugo von Moll indicated the importance of protoplasm. What is protoplasm? Nucleus and cytoplasm. Nucleus and cytoplasm. Next is Pringsheim. He observed that sperm cells penetrate an egg cell. He identified a process called fertilization. He observed a process called fertilization. What is fertilization? The meeting of male and female gamete. The meeting of male and female gametes. What are gametes? Here it is nothing but the sex cells, the sperm and ovum. He observed the meeting of the male and the female ovum. So that process is called as fertilization process. The ovum, it is fertilized by the sperm. So this process only he has identified. That process is called as fertilization. So Pringsheim, he observed the sperm cells are penetrating into the egg cell, and that process we call it as fertilization. The meeting of the male and the female gamete. Children, please copy this. Please copy this. If you have doubt now, you can post it. Children, finished, tell me, I'll move on to the next. If you are finished, tell me, I'll move on to the next. Okay. Kishore, what are somatic cells? Somatic cells are body cells, except the sperm and ovum. All other cells are somatic cells. Okay. Chetna, what is cell theory? I'll explain that, child. I'm going to explain that. Veda Shashikant. Sir, can you please explain the term protozoa again? The proto means primitive. Zoan means animal. Proto means primitive. Zoan means animal. Protozoans are primitive animals. Primitive animals. Like the unicellular organisms, the animals, it comes under that protozoans. For example, the malarial parasite, it comes under that. Pratap, Shaurya Pratap. So Luanuk first used a simple microscope to observe protozoa. Robert Took modified the scope. So sir, how it is, how in his observation afterwards? See, till the discovery of the electron microscope, before that, or light microscope, whatever it is. Before that, there was no clear idea about, what is there inside the cell. After the discovery of electron microscope, only people have identified. But most of the postulates, what is proposed about the microscope, about the details about the cells, some are acceptable, some are not acceptable. Okay. Ishik Halder. So after the cells, does it create a cell? After the cell, after fertilization, does it create a cell? After the fertilization, it will create an organism. It will create an organism. It becomes zygote. Zygote, it will become embryo. Embryo develop into fetus, and fetus develop into a complete organism. Complete organisms. A child. I'll again mention that. Become a zygote. Zygote become embryo. Embryo become a fetus. Fetus become an organism. Is there something which is not made up of cell? All living organisms are made up of cell. If something is non-living, it is not a cell. Danishka, the theory which is used to define a cell, if it rules of the cell theory does not fit in, then it is not known as a cell. Yes, you are right. 100% you are right. See, embryonic development, Dikshita, the embryonic development, we call it as fetus. Embryo develop, the embryonic development develops into fetus, fetus develop into organisms. Deepshita Rai. Sir, is it protoplasm, nucleus, and cytoplasm, or nucleoplasm and cytoplasm? See, within the nucleus, only nucleoplasm is present, right? Yes. Chetan, cell theory, I'm going to explain. Okay, good. Next is cell theory. Chetan, you can listen. Okay. And also, somebody else has asked, right? Okay. Okay, you can listen, children. Cell theory, it was proposed in the year 1838-39, and it was rewritten. It was rewritten in the year. It was proposed in the year 1838 and 1839, and later it was rewritten by Rudolf Virchow. So what Matthias Schleiden explained in the cell theory, or what are the postulates of cell theory, I'm going to tell you. In the postulates of cell theory, the first point which is important here, all living organisms are made up of cells. All living organism is made up of cells. All living organisms are made up of cells. Second point, this is the point which was proposed by Rudolf Virchow. This is the point which was proposed by Rudolf Virchow. What is this point? He mentioned as omnis cellulo e cellulo. This is what he mentioned. That means the cells are formed from pre-existing cells. The cells are formed from pre-existing cells. Suppose how a bacteria is formed. A bacteria are formed from the bacteria that lived earlier. From the parent, daughter cells are formed. So this was proposed by Rudolf Virchow. Rudolf Virchow. So first point, all living organisms are made up of cells. The second point, cells are formed from pre-existing cells. Next thing is cell contains genetic material. The cell contains genetic material. which is passed from the parents to the offspring or parents to the daughter cells. For example, if you look at yourself, children don't post doubts when I am taking class. And mentors, please don't answer to children when they are posting their doubts when I'm explaining. Okay, please. So the next point, what is here? The cells contain genetic material which are passed on from parents to the daughter cells. I'm going to give an explanation for that. For example, if you take a cell, within the cell, there are nucleus. If you take a cell, within the cell, there is a nucleus. Within the nucleus, chromatin threads are there. Within the nucleus, chromatin threads are there. Cell is there. In the cell, there is a nucleus. So within the nucleus, chromatin threads, it will be there. Suppose this is a nucleus. The chromatin threads, it will be there. These are all the chromatin threads. These chromatin threads, it will condense and become chromosomes. These chromatin threads condense and become chromosomes. Cells contain nucleus. The nucleus contain chromatin threads. The chromatin threads condense. It will condense and become chromosomes. The condense and become the chromosomes. Within the chromosomes, DNA, it is present. Within the chromosome, DNA, it is present. Within the chromosome, DNA, it is present. That is called deoxyribonucleic acid. Deoxyribonucleic acid. That is called as DNA. So within the chromosome, DNA, it is present. This DNA, it is the genetic material. This DNA is the genetic material which carry genetic information, from the parents to the child or the offspring. So any character which is there in the child, it is from their parents. Any character from the child, it is from their parents. So which one transfers the character? The character, it is transferred by the DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid. Deoxyribonucleic acid. Deoxyribonucleic acid. So DNA is genetic material. So that is what this point explains. Cell contains genetic material which is passed from parents to the offspring or daughter cells. All next point, all metabolic reactions takes place inside the cell. So what is metabolic reactions? The term metabolic reactions means it includes two things. the metabolic reactions. We call it as metabolism. There are two different types of metabolism. It occurs in our body. The types of metabolism, we call it as cannibalism. This is one type of metabolism. The other one is anabolism. Catabolism, anabolism. So what does it mean, catabolism and anabolism? In our body, two processes takes place. Either some process that results in building up or breaking down. That is called as catabolism and anabolism. The catabolism, it is a process, we call them as building up process. Building up. And cannibalism, sorry, it is called catabolism, sorry. Catabolism and anabolism. The anabolism, that means building up process. Building up process. Anabolism means, anabolism is building up process. The catabolism means breaking down. Breaking down process. These two things are continuously happening in our body. So in the anabolism, two simple substances, they join together to form a large substance. Two simple substances join together to form a large substance. During this process, energy is produced. From this, energy is produced. In the breaking down process, a large substance, it is broken down into simpler substances. During this process, energy is produced. So this is called as metabolism. This type of process, it is continuously happening in the cells. Either catabolism, the breaking down process, or anabolism, the building up process. These two things are happening in our body. Now, you have a clear idea about what is cell theory. All living organisms are made up of cells. Cells are formed from pre-existing cells. Cells contain genetic material which are passed from the parents to the child. All metabolic reactions takes place inside the cell. This is about cell theory. Children, do you have any doubt in the cell theory? Children, do you have any doubt in the cell theory? Now you can ask. Satyanarayanan, Sara. Okay, Ashad. Sir, is DNA and genes same? Children, if you have doubt, you can post your doubts. Otherwise, if you don't have doubts also, you can tell that no doubts. So do we have to memorize all the scientists' name? Akshara, sometimes. Okay. Sir, is DNA and genes same? And Sricharan, how does chromosome fiber condense, chromatin fiber condense to form chromosomes? I'll explain that. Okay, Shreya, what is the full form of RNA? Okay, children, I'll do it. No issues. See here. I told you that the chromatin threads condense and become the chromosome. This happens during cell division process. During cell division process, this process takes place. The chromatin thread, the thread-like structure, it will condense, wind up, and they form the structure which is called as the DNA. They form the DNA, a double-stranded structure like this. And the segment of the DNA, the segment of DNA, the segment of the DNA, we call it as genes. The segment of the DNA, we call it as genes. Ashad, the segment of the DNA, it is called as a gene. Genes are the one that controls the characters in us. Genes are the one that controls the characters. So all characters in our body, it is controlled by the genes. Prakar Palav. What did Sheridan Shevan miss to describe in the cell theory? They never described about how the cells are formed from pre-existing cells. How cells are formed, they never mentioned that. The other thing, the cell is the basic unit of life. All living organisms are made up of cells. All metabolic activities are carried out by the cell. All these informations are given by the two scientists, Sheridan and Schwann, but they never mentioned about from where they are formed. Okay. Somebody asked about Veda. Does every protoplasm have its own DNA? Yes. 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 Okay. Next is somebody asked about RNA. RNA is ribonucleic acid. Okay, good. Does amoeba contains DNA? Amoeba is a unicellular organism, right? It's a prokaryotic or eukaryotic organisms. Is amoeba contains DNA or RNA? That is your doubt, right, child? Amoeba, it contains RNA. Amoeba has RNA, ribonucleic acid. It has RNA, ribonucleic acid. It does not contain DNA. Stephen Raj, sir, so protoplasm is nucleus and cytoplasm. Yes, child. Sir, in both catabolism and anabolism, the energy released are made. Energy utilized or energy liberated. Two things are happening. Any reaction, it requires energy, it liberates energy. Prakar Palav. Why is amoeba irregular in shape? Because it depends on the structure. Ashik Halder. Sir, chromosomes in boys and girls are different. In the boys and girls, you are different, you are asking. The difference is there. If you take a cell, 23 pairs of chromosomes are there. Any cell, if you take it, 23 pairs of chromosomes are there. In the 23 pairs of chromosomes, 22 pairs of chromosomes, it controls body characters. Body characters. These body characters, it is same in both sexes. Same in both. In both male and female, it is same. The 22 pairs, that is 44 chromosomes. 44 chromosomes which control body characters, all are same. Whereas the last one pair of chromosome, it is a different. In the one pair of chromosomes, XX, this is common for both. And one more X, it will be there in the case of female. In the case of female, there is one more X is there. In the case of male, Y, it will be there. So you can see that I would say 45 chromosomes are same for both of us, both male and female. 45 chromosomes are same, whereas one chromosome, that is X chromosome, is different. That is different. Samita, what is the difference between DNA and RNA? DNA and RNA both are made up of same, their nucleic acid both are same, but only difference is the DNA, it is a double-stranded structure like this, a double-stranded structure. 2 strands it will be there in the DNA, whereas RNA, it has single strand. RNA, single strand. Now, if you understand that, that is more than enough. Ashad, what type of energy is released in the process of anabolism and catabolism? Energy, whatever energy is there, it is stored in the form of ATP, adenosine triphosphate. Zainab, what type of energy distributed in our body? The energy is in the form of ATP, adenosine triphosphate. Adenosine triphosphate. It is the energy which is stored, which is there in our body, adenosine triphosphate. Okay, very good. And she, and Visha Mukherjee, what is chromatin? Chromatin is a thread-like structure which is present inside the nucleus. Niranjan Pavan Kumar, I have mentioned about cell theory so many times. And also Tarun, I told about RNA several times. Don't keep on asking that. So everybody should listen to the class, because we can repeat 2 times or 3 times. Many times it is not possible. Okay, try to understand that. Okay, children. So cell theory, just now I explained about the whole cell theory. Where is ATP released from? Mostly ATP is released from the mitochondria. Mitochondria. What is the difference between X chromosomes and Y chromosomes? Nothing. The characters, the feminine characters, the male and the female characters. The male and the female characters. Yes, Pranav, 100% you are right. 100% you are right. Catabolism process releases lot of energy. Catabolism releases lot of energy. Anabolism use energy. The anabolism use energy, but in any process, when they are using energy, little bit of energy is also released. In the anabolism, they use energy. In the anabolism process, that's what I told you. The anabolism process, they use energy. They use energy in this reaction, but liberate little amount of energy. Whereas catabolism process, it releases energy. It releases energy. But here in anabolism, very little amount of energy is released. Very little. But they take lot of energy to break it. Okay, very good. So next is exception to cell theory. I told you about the cell theory, right? Cells are formed from pre-existing cells. All those things we have just explained. But here, there are certain organisms which never follow the cell theory. Cell theory, all of us know that all living organisms are made up of cells. Cells are formed from pre-existing cells. All these things we have learned it, right? But these organisms are exception to cell theory. The poliomyelitis virus, adenovirus, bacteriophage, mumps virus, Vacciana virus. All these organisms are still puzzle in biology. Why it is called puzzles in biology? Still, these organisms, they have not placed, they're not placed in either in plant group or animal group. That is one thing. And they are not even placed whether they are living organisms or non-living organisms. Because these organisms share both living and non-living character. Both living and non-living characters. Both the characters are here in these organisms. They share both living and non-living characters. Both living and non-living characters. They show the living characters. These organisms show living characters when they are inside the living cell. Inside the living cell, they show living character. Outside, in the outside environment, it shows non-living characters. Virus, inside our body, it will proliferate. Inside our body, it will proliferate. It will grow more. That is a living character. And non-living characters. The non-living characters, it shows when they are outside. Suppose in the outside environment, in your table or in your vessels or in your phone, wherever it is, the virus can live there. But virus, it will be there in a non-living character. That means they live in a crystallized form. In a crystallized form, it can be there. In a crystallized form. Whereas inside the living organism, inside the living cells, it will be alive. It will be alive. They don't have the protoplasm, the living part of the cell. Usually, they'll be like a parasite. What is parasite? They live inside the body of other living organisms. This is exception to cell theory. Any organism, if it is a living, it has a cell. But these organisms, which are exception to cell theory, they have characters of both living and non-living. They share the characteristics of both living and non-living. So these organisms, it will not come under the category of cell theory. It won't come under the category of cell theory. Okay, this is about that. Okay. There's one doubt here. Ananya Sati. Sir, if one pair is different, how can we count up to 45 which are same? Here, child, I told you 44 chromosomes are same, right? The 45th chromosome is this X. This X is also same, right? That's why I told you 45. You got it, child? Here two X's are there. Both male have X, female have X. One more X is there in the female, but Y is there in the male. That's why I told you 45 chromosomes are same. Ananya Sati? Okay. Next is, I want you to copy this. I want you to copy this. We are going to learn about the cell structure. Copy these, children. All of you copy this. Cell structure. Plasma membrane, cytoplasm, nucleus. In the cytoplasm, we have cell organelle, cell inclusions. Copy these, children, all of you. Children, all of you copy this and take 2 minutes break. Take 2 minutes break. And after the break, I'm going to explain about the cell structure. Take 2 minutes break. After the break, I'll explain about that. Copy this and take 2 minutes break, children, all of you. Welcome back, children. Welcome back. Shall we start? All of you are ready? Children, shall we start? All of you are ready? Okay. Shankar Narayanan. Yes, sir. Very good. Immediate response. Good child. Anushka Sagi. So, is there any special characters, special chemical present in the living body that the virus get activated but inactivate outside the living body? It's not that the living environment is the one that helps them to proliferate. Usually what will happen when virus enters inside the body, it has two single stranded RNA, but in our body DNA is there, right? So that two single stranded RNA, it will become double stranded DNA and interfere in our body along with our DNA. It uses our body to proliferate more. So all these process, when you go to higher classes, you will understand it now. Certain things, when you ask also, I will not explain that in the class because that will confuse others. That will confuse others. Okay, it's a very good question. I appreciate that question, but they have a good environment in our body to proliferate. That only I can tell you now. Sankaranarayan, what are the cell components the virus lack? The virus lack certain organelles, or even the protoplasm will not be there. Virus do not have an independent metabolism. That means it does not require, they don't have enzymes, they don't have special organelles in their body. They don't do metabolism. But inside the body, it uses our metabolism to proliferate. But only thing what they can do it is they can respire, but without organelles. Prokaryotic, Arshit. Okay, I hope I'll answer your questions. We'll move on to the structures. The cell structure, if you take a cell, any cell, whether it is a plant cell or animal cell, they have all these three structures in it. The outer membrane, we call it as plasma membrane. There are three terms it is given here for plasma membrane. One is plasma membrane. In some textbook, it is mentioned as cell membrane. In some textbook, it is mentioned as plasma lemma. Plasma lemma. All the three are same. Okay, don't worry about that. Plasma membrane, cell membrane, plasma lemma. And then the place that is here, that is enclosed by the plasma membrane, we call it as cytoplasm. Cytoplasm. In the cytoplasm, it contains cell organelles. Like how we have organs in the body, the cell has cell organelles. Cell has cell organelles. Some cell organelles I mentioned here, much more is there. I'm going to teach that, don't worry. And cell inclusions are there. Cell inclusions are substances produced by cell organelles. It may be a good product or a waste product. Substances produced by the cell organelles. They are called the cell inclusions. and then nucleus. Nucleus, it will be at the center. These are all the components that are present in the cell. Now, I'm going to explain to you about the outer layer, the outer membrane of the cell, the outer protective membrane of the cell, which is called as the plasma membrane. The outer protective layer that is called as plasma membrane. Plasma membrane, plasma membrane, it lives, it is there in both plant cell and animal cells. And apart from that, in the case of plant cell, they have one more membrane is there. They have one more protective layer is there. They have one more protective layer. We call that layer as cell wall. Cell wall. So plasma membrane is there. Apart from plasma membrane, any cell that has a plasma membrane, apart from plasma membrane, apart from plasma membrane, cell wall, cell wall, it is present in plants alone. Cell wall is present in plants alone. Pranav Kannan. So what are cell organelles? Like in our body, we have organs like to carry out certain functions. Like that, in the cells, each and every cell, they have organelles. Instead of organ, they have organelles to carry out the function. That is called a cell organelles. So each and every cell organelle, they have their own function. Okay. So now I'm going to talk to you about the plasma membrane. The plasma membrane is the outermost layer. The outermost layer which protects the cytoplasmic organelles and the nucleus. So the main function of plasma membrane, it protects cellular components. It protects cellular components. It protects cellular components. And it is made up of lipids, proteins. Different types of proteins and lipids, it will be there. Plasma membrane. Next is the characteristics of plasma membrane. I told you about the plasma membrane. It's also called cell membrane, plasma lemma. This outermost layer which protects the cellular components. The next thing is it delimits the cell. Delimits the cell means it restricts the growth of cytoplasm. It restricts the growth of cytoplasm. The cytoplasm is here, right? So the cytoplasm is restricted by the plasma membrane. And plasma membrane, it protect the cell from the external environment. Outside environment. External means the outside the cell. Outside the cell. The cell is protected from the outside factors with the help of the cell membrane. The help of the cell membrane. Lipid. Lipids are nothing but the fats. and proteins, right? Fats. The first point, what I've just explained, the cell is the one that protects the cell membrane is the one that protects the cell and protects the cellular components, the constitution, the cytoplasm, the cell organelles. It protects the cell organelles from the external environment, outside the environment. It protects the cytoplasm, which contains cell organelles mainly. Cell organelles. And also, the plasma membrane, it helps the exchange of substances. Exchange of substances from where to where. So this is outside the cell, and this is inside the cell. Inside and outside. Inside and outside. Outside the cell, inside the cell. It allows the movement of particles from outside the cell to inside. Similarly, it allows the particles from inside to come outside. When something from outside which goes inside, we call that as endocytosis. Endocytosis. From outside, something moves inside. That is called endocytosis. From inside, if something comes out, we call that process as exocytosis. Exocytosis. When something moves from outside to inside, when something moves from outside to inside, it is called endocytosis. When something moves from inside to outside, that is called as exocytosis. That is called as exocytosis. So both are taken care by the cell membrane. Cell membrane regulates the flow of substances from outside the cell to inside and inside the cells to outside. And next thing is, it provides shape and protection. It is a semi-fluid cellular constituent. That means semi-fluid means it is a jelly-like substance. Jelly-like. It won't be too solid. It won't be too solid or too liquid. In between that. That's why it's called semi-fluid. Semi-fluid means not too hard, not too fluid. Semi-fluid. The plasma membrane, it shows selectively permeability. The term selective permeability, that means will allow only certain molecules inside. It will allow only certain molecules inside the cell. It will allow only certain molecules inside the cell. So that is called a selective permeability. Selective permeability. Selective permeability. These are all some of the important characteristics of plasma membrane. Some of the important characteristics of plasma membrane. Kindly note this, children. Kindly note this. We'll continue. Once you finish writing, tell me, we'll continue. I'll give time for you to copy it. Please do it. Sir, are there any molecular structure which are harmful if they enter the cell? Like, for example, a foreign substance, any foreign substance. Yes. Any foreign substance from outside. Okay. Rajkonda. Exocytosis. Exo means outer. If something comes out from the cell to the outside environment, inside the cell to outside. See the arrow mark, the diagram. Inside the cell to outside, that is called exocytosis. From outside to inside the cell, that is called as endocytosis. Nagappan is semi-permeable and selective permeable same. Semi-permeable, selective permeable is different. Semi-permeable means certain proteins are allowed by carriers. That is selective semi-permeable. Selectively permeable means it will allow only exact substances to move inside. What is required by the cells? What is required by the cells? Okay. What is the use of cell wall? Eichig-Halder, protection and gives a definite shape to the cell. And also another thing is rigidity, stiffness to the cell. Okay. Yes. Next is we're going to talk about the various models of plasma membrane. Two models I'm going to explain here. One is a fluid mosaic model proposed by Singer and Nicholson. A fluid mosaic model. Fluid mosaic model. And the other model is called sandwich model, which was proposed by Hugh Davison and James Daniel. Let's talk about that. And Veda Shashikant. You asked about osmosis, diffusion, all those things. I'm going to explain it here. Don't worry. Anushka, endocytosis, exocytosis, I'll explain there. Okay, don't worry about that. I'll explain later. The Singer and Nicholson model, the fluid mosaic model proposed by Singer and Nicholson, it shows that the cell is made up of basically, the cell membrane basically contains lipids and carbohydrates. Proteins. So the lipids, the bilipid layers. For example, here you can see the glycolipid is there. That means glucose plus lipid. Cholesterol, it is a lipid. And you can see that proteins are there. Integral protein, globular protein, channel protein, and then alpha helix protein. So you can see that different types of proteins are there. Integral protein is there, peripheral protein, channel protein, alpha helix protein. 4 different types of proteins are there. And then glycoprotein is also there, glucose plus protein. Carbohydrate is there. So you can understand that the outer membranes, the plasma membrane is made up of bilipid layers. Why it is called as bilipid layer? Bilipid. 2 lipid layer it will be there. One is like this. The other one it will be like this. It's called bilipid layer. So bilipid layer is there. Carbohydrates it will be there. And proteins it will be there. Ritanya, sir, do we have to learn about all these proteins specifically? Not necessary. It's not necessary. Next is the other model, Hugg-Davison model. In the Hugg-Davison model, phospholipid layer is there. It's a sandwich model. So the cell membrane, it is made up of phospholipid bilayer. The phospholipid bilayer, it is present between the membrane proteins. Top membrane protein, down also membrane protein there. In between that phospholipid layer, it is there. This is about the sandwich model proposed by Hugg-Davison and James Danieli. So these are all two models of plasma membrane. So what is it present in the plasma membrane? Next is, we're going to talk about how flow of material takes place in the plasma membrane. How flow of material takes place between the plasma membrane. Here, Veda Sashikant, you asked about osmosis diffusion. Anushka Sahe, you asked about endocytosis, exocytosis. I'm going to explain this. Okay. Flow of materials in the plasma membrane. Flow of materials in the plasma membrane. So what is flow of material, or what is diffusion? You should know it. The definition for diffusion. The definition for diffusion, the movement, the definition for diffusion, the movement of molecules from the region of higher concentration to the region of lower concentration. That is known as diffusion. This is the definition for diffusion. The movement of molecules from the region of higher concentration to the region of lower concentration. The diffusion occurs only when there is a difference here. From higher to lower concentration. Mostly diffusion occurs in gases and liquids. And also diffusion occurs in solids. But in the solid, it will be very, very slow, diffusion process. Whereas in liquid and gases, it will be faster. So diffusion can take place in gases, in liquids, and solids. So what is diffusion? The movement of molecules from the region of higher concentration to region of lower concentration. So always the molecules, it will move from higher concentration to lower concentration. So diffusion it is a force. It is a force, a driving force for the molecules to move from higher concentration to lower concentration. This is about diffusion. So diffusion can take place in the cells. Next is facilitated diffusion. The facilitated diffusion, it occurs in hydrophilic substances. What is hydrophilic substances? Substances that like water. Hydrophilic, that means they like water. It is again a diffusion. What is diffusion? Movement of molecules from higher concentration to the lower concentration. Movement of substances from higher concentration to lower concentration. But why it is called as facilitated diffusion? I'll give a simple example here. I'll give a simple example for facilitated diffusion. For example, there is a road here. There is a road. There is a road here. A 20 years old person, this road is a busy road. The 20 years old person has to cross the road. And there is a 90 years old person is there. Assume that both the person, they have to cross the road. But little bit traffic is also there. Little traffic is there in the road. Little traffic is there in the road. So who need help here? The 90 years old or 20 years boy? Who need help? Who need help to cross the road? Ashad, 90 years. I think only Ashad is listening to the class. And Sankar Narayan is listening. Because when I ask a simple question here, so far only 4% responded. A 90-year-old, he need help, right? But 20-year-old, he can cross the road easily. So this is what I will tell you, a diffusion process. Moving from one region to another region. But here, this person can cross the road with someone help. With someone help. So that is called as facilitated diffusion. Here also molecules moving from one region to another region, higher to lower concentration, through protein channels present here. So through the protein channel, it is transported from higher to lower concentration. So that is called as facilitated diffusion. So facilitated diffusion always requires something to transport without expenditure of energy. Because again, higher to lower concentration, right? So anything move from higher to lower concentration, it does not require energy. Anything that move from higher to lower concentration, it does not require energy. Always remember that. But in the facilitated diffusion, they need certain substances as a carrier. They need certain channels to move across. Whereas the diffusion, it is not required. Diffusion, the substances molecule itself can move. Whereas facilitated diffusion, it need some substances help. Some protein channel is required to transport. This is called as facilitated diffusion. Next is osmosis. Osmosis is again the same definition. Movement of molecules from higher solute concentration to the lower solute concentration. So here you can see that higher concentration is there this side, lower concentration is there this side. So the molecules always move from higher to lower concentration, that we know it. But what is osmosis? In the diffusion process, the molecule is moving inside and outside, depends on the concentration. Depends on the concentration. But what is the difference here? In the osmosis, the movement takes place through a semi-permeable membrane. So there is a semi-permeable membrane is there. Semi-permeable membrane is there. So this semi-permeable membrane, it is only present in the living cells. So that means the osmosis can take place in the living cells, whereas diffusion can take place anywhere. Anywhere. Osmosis required semi-permeable membrane to move, and also usually it occurs in the fluid. Osmosis, the molecules move from higher to lower concentration. The molecules it moved higher to lower concentration until it maintains equal, until it becomes equal. Once both the substances, both the concentrations are same, once both the concentrations are same, the concentration of both higher and lower concentration, from higher to lower the molecules are moving. When both become equal, this process stops. This process stops. That is the speciality about the osmosis. It's a movement of substances. It's a movement of substances that move across from higher to lower concentration through a semi-permeable membrane. Through a semi-permeable membrane. That is called as. And osmosis, as I told already, it occurs only in the fluid liquid medium. Only in the liquid medium this process takes place. It won't work out in solid, liquid, gas. But diffusion can take place in solid, liquid, and gas. Okay? Dashini? Yes. So this is about flow of material, diffusion, facilitated diffusion, osmosis. The next one is active transport. With that, I will end the class today. Next class, I will teach about cell wall and all other things. We learn it in the next class. Okay? Testis. Okay, children. Yes, active transport. Very good. What is active transport? I have told you that in the osmosis and diffusion, I have told you the molecules are moving from higher to lower concentration, right? Higher to lower concentration. But in active transport, it is against a concentration gradient. That means the molecules are moving from lower concentration to higher concentration. In the active transport, the molecules are moving against the concentration gradient, that is from lower to higher. In the osmosis, the molecules are moving from higher to lower concentration, but this is lower to higher concentration. It is also called as uphill transport. Uphill. Here, when substances are moving from lower concentration to higher concentration, it requires lot of energy. The energy, they use it in the form of ATP, adenosine triphosphate. This is the energy molecule. Adenosine triphosphate. This is the ATP molecule, adenosine triphosphate. It's called active transport. In active transport, the molecule is moving from lower concentration to higher concentration. That is against the concentration gradient, which requires lot of energy. So even substances can move across the membrane by using lot of energy. That is called as active transport. Okay, children? Okay. So cell wall, from cell wall, we'll discuss it later. So today's class, we have discussed a lot actually. We started with what is the definition for cell structure and function, discovery of cell theory, acceptance cell theory, plasma membrane we have learned. The plasma membrane, we have learned about the layers, bilipid layer, fluid mosaic layer, phospholipid layer, flow of material. We learned about diffusion, we learned about facilitated diffusion, we learned about osmosis, and finally we learned about active transport. Okay, children? So with that, I will end the class. I'll stop teaching. Now I just want to ask you about how do you feel about the class? Is that the class, is that okay for you? Are you able to understand something? You can give your feedback. Okay, children? You can give your whatever you feel. Samita, which substances go through active transport? So substances that has low concentration, but still it has to move inside. Substances that is required by the cell, but low concentration is there, but still it can move inside by using lot of energy. Okay. So in today's class, we have mentors for the class, and today mentor we have Salai Kulama Mani. Sir is there with us, who's a class 9 mentor, will be answering most of your questions in the class. Okay, children? And Sham Sundar Shivakumar. Difficult. You find it difficult, right? Kishore, a bit difficult. So only thing, child. Yes, sometimes some children you will find it difficult. Don't worry about that. So whatever you feel that it is easy for you, you just understand that alone. Concentrate in that. Once you keep on understanding something, slowly what will happen? You will learn everything. But never give up. Never give up. That is very important. You should not give up. Okay, children? Because some concepts are new to you. Here, I'll give more information for you to understand. So that's why. Okay, children? Anushka, what is the difference between active osmosis and only the concentration from higher to lower or something else? Only that, using lot of energy, that process? Yes. Okay, children. And thank you very much. Mentor, are you ready with the test paper? Test paper is ready. Okay, children, don't worry. So I'll get your feedbacks. I'll go through your feedbacks. Similarly, we'll plan. Don't worry. I said already, don't worry about biology. We'll do. Okay. Thank you, children. Thank you very much. I thank everyone here for listening to the class and made the class an interesting one. Thank you all. Thank you very much. Mentors, you can start the test.